everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, although only in audio form this week. If you're watching the video, we're having some internet issues at Tim's place, and as a result, he's audio only. But Tim's here.
I've become one with the sound.
And one with the kangaroos, apparently. So this is the horror movie podcast. Obviously, our main episodes tend to be our movie discussion episodes, but every week, although we missed the last week or so, but we're here to talk about horror movie news. We got some updates on release dates, we got some movie announcements, and all that sort of thing. So we're going to dive into it. We'll also talk about any horror movies we happen to see over the past week or so that weren't for review purposes. If you want to share any of those at the end, we do that here too. So. So first up, we have some release date changes. As expected, we've been getting a lot of these recently. Spiral from the Book of Saw, which was supposed to be out in May 15th, which is, just under 2 weeks from now. Obviously, not happy. We already had the news that it had been delayed. We do have a new release date for it, though, and it is May 21st, 2021.
Whoa. Can you wait that long? Are you gonna be okay?
A full year. They went a full year with it, which I guess is just them being like, I guess what they don't want to do is like, oh, we'll just delay it 2 months. Oh no, we have to delay it another 2 months because things aren't back to normal yet. I think a lot of the movie studios now are being very cautious and saying, no, what? Let's just assume it's going to be at least a year.
Yeah. That makes sense.
On another release date, new release date, we got Antebellum, which was meant to be out in April, and that was one that had a pretty unique trailer. The trailer was kind of interesting. The new date for this is now August 21st this year. Lionsgate putting this one
out. Okay, that was the Lionsgate one. I'm surprised that I don't know. I feel like that one you could just throw on VOD.
It might end up happening. I mean, they're hoping theaters will be back and open for business. I saw a thing just like yesterday that some theaters want to like start putting like security checks at the front. Like you're at an airport to check if people have like fevers or anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes people want to go to the movie theater. That they have to go through a security check to get into the building.
Especially when it's like, I don't know, if you're seeing like The Turning or something, like, I don't know, that's way too much.
Yeah, all you're doing is making movie theaters less appealing. And I get that everyone's desperate to try and start making money again, but yeah, not the time. And then one that I know we're both anticipating heavily is Escape Room 2, which is now coming on January 1st, 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, New Year's Day.
Holiday release.
Yeah, well, it got delayed previously. It was meant to be coming out on December 30th this year as of the last update. So it's only actually moved by 2 days since the last time it was changed, but
okay.
Whatever. It sounds much further though, right? It's like now it's 2021. Whoa.
Yeah.
The whole year. And then the other one from last week is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which has moved a whole chunk of time as well. It's coming now March 25th, 2022. It was meant to be... Originally, it was meant to be May 2021, but then all the Marvel movies got bumped back a slot, and that moved it to November 2021, and now it's coming March 2022. So...
Hey, that'll be right before my birthday, so happy birthday to me.
Yes, your birthday in 2 years.
Yeah.
Yes, we're all anticipating it greatly. So that's the release date moves that stuck out to me when I was looking for news. So we'll move on to some more interesting things. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is getting a sequel. Andrea Overdahl is working on it. Of course, this was for Paramount and Entertainment One. So you got Dan Hageman and Kevin Hageman are returning to write the script along with the director, with Del Toro producing once again. And yeah, he's actually set to have input in the story. So the two, I presume, brothers are writing the screenplay, but Del Toro's actually giving some input in the story. So no.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think we're a little bit down on the first movie, but I don't know. Like, I think there was some interesting stuff there. For a sequel, they could kind of maybe use it to right some of the complaints about the first one, because I feel like a lot of people complain that there wasn't enough of the actual stories. I don't know if they maybe try to incorporate that more. It could possibly be interesting.
I guess my complaint with the first one was just the horror stuff felt really generic once it got going. I liked the start of the movie when it felt like it was okay. It's a bunch of kids in a town, creepy stuff starts happening. I was into that, but once it got going, like by the time it got to the end, I was really out of it, and it wasn't like for me anymore. So it's what it is. Next up, we have again with Lionsgate here. So not that they did Scary Stories, they did Antebellum. But we mentioned Lionsgate already. Was the point I was making. Anyway, so they actually have boarded another film from the people behind Antebellum. Gerard Bush and Christopher Rance they're going to be working on a movie called Rapture, which Lionsgate are working on. Rapture portrays a family torn apart by warring beliefs which must come together to unravel the mystery around the sudden vanishing of the global population before it's too late. This is one of these ones where it doesn't actually make it outright clear that it's a horror movie, and not because this could easily be a science fiction, like post-apocalyptic movie, based on that description. But it doesn't actually say what it is, and it's unbloody disgusting. So I have to assume that it has a horror bent, unless told otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily, I don't know, do much for me. I mean, from that kind of vague description, but maybe once a trailer comes out or something, it could look kind of cool.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get excited because we've not seen Antebellum. We should have seen that by now, and then we'd have an opinion on these filmmakers. But because we haven't, we're just sort of sitting here spinning wheels, like, oh, maybe they're good. We don't know.
Maybe,
maybe it's wonderful. Maybe it's hot garbage. Sorry, hot garbage.
Garbage.
I don't know. So that's Rapture. Next up, we that's the wrong tab. Next up, we have Dreamland, which is coming from director Bruce McDonald, who directed Pontypool, and
cool.
He's actually bringing back Stephen McHattie, who was in Pontypool. He's also got Juliette Lewis in this, as well as Henry Rollins. And Dreamland takes place on the night of the strangest wedding in cinema history, where a grotesque gang boss hires a stone-cold killer to bring him the finger of a fading, drug-addicted jazz legend. Now, that doesn't tell you a whole lot. Luckily, there's a longer description further down the page here, because the headline for this actually mentioned vampire wedding. And that little description, I'm like, wait a minute, where's the vampires? I thought it was a vampire. So here's the longer version of the description that was further down the page. This is from Fantasia. On the orders of his boss, a low-level gangster Hercules, played by Rollins, hitman Johnny, played by Mihai, must cut off the pinky finger of celebrated jazz trumpeter the Maestro, played also by McHattie. So McHattie's playing two roles, for whatever reason, just before an important high-profile gig. Seems simple enough, but the gig is a wedding at the fortified palace of crime queen, the Countess, played by Juliette Lewis. And Johnny isn't quite feeling it. Hercules is moving up from standard gangster stuff to human trafficking, and the reason for the pinky request is more of a slight than anything else. Like all movie hitmen, Johnny is thinking of getting out of the game, and this job has convinced him that it's time to retire. Throw in the Countess vampire's brother. So the Countess has a brother who's a vampire. Just casually mentioned here at the end of the description. His child bride and the wedding from hell. You'll think you've imagined it all, but no, it's just a visit to Dreamland. So I'm going to be honest. I have I would not even think this is a horror movie until it just casually mentioned vampire.
Sure.
Towards the end of it, it's like, no, this sounds like a hitman story where the hitman wants to get out of the game and this is his one last job, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh boy, I don't know. There's sounds like there's a lot going on there. I'm certainly intrigued. I do like Pontypool. And I don't know, it's hard to tell if this premise is like, all right, this is way too overcooked, or this is gonna like be wonderfully bizarre. I'm definitely intrigued though.
Yeah, I like Pontypool well enough as well. And I think it's funny that movie's essentially the smallest amount you can do in a movie, because it's all set in a radio booth where he's just hearing all these stories. And then this movie sounds like it's got every bit of plot you could possibly imagine thrown at it. So this is coming out on June 5th on VOD platforms. So this will be one that we'll get access to, in a couple months. Well, not even a couple, 1 month or so. So looks we'll try it and we'll see if it's the mess that it kind of sounds like, or
yeah. I'm at the very least, I'm looking forward to what it's going to be like.
Yeah. So that's Dreamland. Next up, IFC Midnight recently acquired the North American rights to Natalie Erica James' directed Australian horror film Relic, which made its world premiere at Sundance Film Festival in January. So this is going to be coming out from them on July 10th. Presumably that'll be VOD. It doesn't actually say that, but I assume, because who's picking a release date right now and putting it out in 2 months?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. If to do it theatrically, that is. Anyway, so here's the description. When Edna, the elderly widowed matriarch of the family, goes missing, her daughter Kay and granddaughter Sam travel to the remote family home to find her. Soon after her return, they start to discover a sinister presence haunting the house and taking control of Edna. Honestly, that description on its own, it sounds a little bit generic, supernatural, possession. There's not a whole lot there to go on here. The only thing I have here to give me some sort of hope for this one is that apparently it got a decent amount of praise when it did screen at Sundance. So
yeah,
okay, sure. I mean, we'll probably give it a try then and see how it is.
Sure.
And Emily Mortimer's a bit of a name. I know who that is, so that's something. It doesn't mean it'll be good, of course. Many good actors been in a bad horror movie.
Yeah, no, I'll I mean, I don't really have much opinion. Yeah, but obviously, we'll check it out.
What was that one on the boat last year? I think it was like Pierce Brosnan was in it.
Oh well, there was it was just called Mary, and it was what the hell's his name? Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman, that's the one I'm thinking of, not Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, it was horrible though. I ended up watching it. It was pretty boring. But
okay, so that is Relic. Yeah, actually, I'm just going to add one more news story here to put on at the end, even though it's TV related and not movie related. But I think it's worth us talking about.
Okay.
You probably know what it is.
Yeah.
So, next up, Magnet has acquired a film again from Sundance. So some of those Sundance movies are making their way to distributors. So Magnet Releasing have announced that they have acquired the North American rights to Amulet, the feature directorial debut of actress turned filmmaker Ramola Garai. The film starring Carla Jury, Alec Saccharino, and Imelda Stunton. I mean, this is a foreign film, clearly, just based on all these names. So it had its world premiere to critical acclaim at the midnight section at Sundance. They're going to release this in theaters and on demand. I mean, theaters is kind of optimistic here because again, this is July 24th. I mean, we'll see. But here's the description. Amulet follows Tomaz, the former soldier who is left homeless after an accident and takes refuge in the decaying home of Magda, a lonely young woman in desperate need of help as she cares for her ailing mother. At first hesitant, Magda soon welcomes Tomaz into their lives, but as he gets closer to her and begins to fall for Magda, Tomaz notices strange and unexplainable phenomena. Something seems very wrong with the mysterious old woman who never leaves the top floor, and Tomaz begins to suspect that Magda may in fact be a prisoner to her otherworldly bidding.
Ooh. Yeah, no, could be cool. I don't know. It's always kind of hard. Like, I don't know. I feel like with horror movies, like the premise, can sound like pretty good. It's hard to get like a feel like right away without like a trailer or knowing about like people's previous works or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And as I said, this is a directorial debut, so
yeah.
I feel like again getting so much credit, so much acclaim, I should say, from the festival, does make me a little bit more curious. That said, I have definitely been bit before on critical acclaim because I feel like sometimes you get like absolute crap that has like all these festival awards, and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Was it a slow year that year? Was there not a whole lot to pick from? But at the same time, sometimes it does work out, and we get these little gems that otherwise wouldn't get a whole lot of fanfare. And definitely, we'll keep an eye out. We'll see how it is. But it's called Amulet, and it's coming on July 24th. So we'll likely look at it sometime in the near future after that. So that is Amulet. Next up, we're going to talk about Warhunt, which, interestingly, notice here that while most of production has shut down across Hollywood and everywhere else, this is actually a movie that kept shooting whilst everything else shut down, which makes me think that's a bit weird, and maybe makes me question the professionalism and the safety concerns of the people in charge of this movie. But interestingly, this is actually going to star Mickey Rourke, who of course we saw in Nightmare Cinema last year. Obviously, he's known for a lot more than that, but that's what we saw him in recently horror-wise. So it's a World War II fantasy horror called Warhunt. It follows the elite squad of American soldiers on a secret mission during World War II. Trapped behind enemy lines in Germany's Black Forest, the men are confronted by a coven of witches.
Okay. I mean, I think I said before, like, I never really like, war horror stories. Like, whenever people try to, combine some supernatural thing with like a war setting or aesthetic, usually doesn't do much for me. I mean, this could definitely be cool though. I mean, I wouldn't, necessarily write it off, but typically this isn't the kind of thing I fancy that much.
Yeah, Robert Knepper's also in there. So, yeah. The crew on the project, which shot in Riga, the capital of Latvia, were allowed to continue working by abiding by government guidelines, adds the site. These include having don face masks and gloves, having their temperatures taken twice a day, social distancing, and disinfecting the equipment. So, okay. They were allowed to keep shooting while they were in Latvia. I guess the thought of having to fly home and then come back to Latvia was maybe unappealing. So they, even though for everything we understand that if you're asymptomatic, you're asymptomatic. So like doesn't necessarily stop anything. But hey ho. So that's called Warhunt. I do like the idea of we don't get a lot of witches movies, right? I feel like maybe this is something that could be cool. Admittedly, Mickey Rourke, even though I've liked him in a couple of things, obviously he's great in The Wrestler and whatever. But when you look at Nightmare Cinema, he was like, outside of the last story, which wasn't that good, he was the weakest part of that movie. Now it wasn't necessarily his fault. It was his character had real no purpose. It just felt kind of pointless and tacked on. But it's the image they've got of him here on Bloody Disgusting. He looks like he just did in that movie. In fact, I think they're even in a theater in this image. So it's not giving me any ideas of like him doing something different I've not seen before. Or whatever. So there you go.
I mean, I think he's a good enough actor, but yeah, it probably needs the right director to rein him in or show him the ropes or whatever. But I don't know, it could be cool. I don't know.
So we'll wrap up news story wise, at least, with a non-movie thing. This feels something that's worth mentioning. Is we know there's a Hellraiser movie in the works. We've talked about that a couple of times recently, but there's also a Hellraiser TV show now in the works, and HBO are the ones behind it. What does not excite me quite as much as some of the names attached to this one. David Gordon Green is directing the pilot and will direct several other episodes in the season, of season 1 at least, I assume. David Gordon Green, of course, did Halloween 2018 and the upcoming Halloween Kills, which my biggest problem with that movie was the direction not fitting the style of movie or the character. And now, admittedly, that might not be as much of an issue with Hellraiser, because Hellraiser is not supposed to be the slow, suspenseful, stalking movie that Halloween is. It's a very different type of story. But yeah, HBO are developing this, and if you're going to pick a network for a Hellraiser TV show, HBO would be one of your top choices, presumably.
I want to say, I could be wrong, but David Gordon Green, I think he does a lot of those Danny McBride shows on HBO. Like, I imagine he was involved in like Righteous Gemstones and Vice Principals, probably.
You're right. Yes, I brought up Halloween because I thought it was more relevant, but you're right.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, that would be the big horror thing that he's done before. So maybe he doesn't have quite the horror chops, but given of what I know him from, I at least think maybe his TV stuff like that I seem to enjoy a bit more. So maybe it might be a better fit for him. But yeah, I think this is really interesting news. I'm a big fan of the Hellraiser series, and yeah, like obviously we've been doing the movies, and we haven't really gotten to like the really, really bad sequels yet. But it is something I could see that could like make a comeback, and it is feel what kind of wild because we've had so much movie news like the past couple of years. Like first, Clive Barker was going to reboot it, then it was David Goyer, and then didn't they just say someone after that? The guy that did the ritual? I don't know.
Yeah, that was the most recent one. That's the one that's at least right now. That's the one going forward. But I mean, we'll see if it actually happens.
Yeah, and I mean, my first thought was like, oh well, all right, if they're doing a TV show, I guess I don't want to do a movie anymore. But then, I mean, I guess there's kind of precedent now because we had like Child's Play and everything, last year, which presumably is still getting its TV show. So doesn't mean a movie and a TV show can't coexist.
Far as we know, and this is one of these things where if this happens, this is likely something that me and you'll review. You don't usually do TV, but
yeah,
if there's a Chucky TV show or a Hellraiser TV show, we've done the whole franchise. That's going to be a Screams thing for sure in some capacity. But another name that's maybe a bit more hopeful, I think, is Michael Dougherty, who did Krampus, and Godzilla King of the Monsters and Trick or Treat. I mean, I think Trick or Treat's a little bit overrated, but I did really like Krampus and Godzilla. While the human characters weren't great, I did have a lot of fun with the monster stuff. So I think him being on board to like maybe do the Cenobite stuff and whatnot. He's writing anyway. He's co-writing with Mark Verheiden, who worked on Battlestar Galactica from 2003. So yeah, don't know what he's been doing since then. But
did he do some Ash versus Evil Dead stuff?
Maybe, I don't know. It doesn't say that here. You would think they mentioned that in Bloody Disgusting when they're talking about horror TV show. But...
I could be wrong. I might have been thinking about some other because I feel like I heard something recently about someone that was involved in that, but maybe I might be thinking of a different story. But I think my big hope for this is I would really love if they were to do like an anthology series because I really like the old Hellraiser comics, like the ones from the I want to say maybe early 90s. I don't know if it was late 80s, but I think definitely 90s. Had a pretty good run of Hellraiser series, but there was very like they're all like one shots or like small story arcs that were usually just involving like different people finding the box or like delving into different kind of people's like own personal hells and that sort of thing. And so it's like there's some really fun creative stories. So I think if you're gonna do a Hellraiser series, that would be the way to go. Like, I think what my worry would be, especially with, I feel like the last couple of things, I mean, not just HBO in general, but I think a lot of TV shows nowadays just they really stretch things out. So like, I wouldn't want to see just like a 10 episode long retelling of the first movie or something like that.
You're poking at those questions. Let me read the details here for what we know about it. At least what they've said about it so far. The idea is to create an elevated continuation and expansion of the well-established Hellraiser mythology. It is by no means a remake, but rather assumes the past mythology to be a given. The centerpiece remains Pinhead, the pincushion-headed mercilessly drilled Cenobites, the formerly humans turned demons that live in an extra-dimensional realm and are activated through a puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. The Cenobites come from hell to harvest human souls and keep balance between good and evil. So, I mean, they're saying it's not a remake and it's not retelling the story of the movie.
Okay.
So,
that's good at least.
Yeah, I mean, I do expect a serialized element, but I could see it incorporating kind of an anthology-esque element too. Like, what if there's a through line of someone like hunting down the box or whatever, but as they go through the story, like we meet other different people who are all essentially like just to their episode kind of thing. I don't know. You could do something like that. But yeah, so that is a Hellraiser the TV show. So we'll see if it goes through. But
yeah, and the other thing too, of course, is like I don't want to see something that's like gonna explore like all the Cenobites like backstory and have them as like the main focus. Like they always work good as kind of the like catalyst to the story or whatever, like the thing that pops up in the end. I don't know. I hope it's they don't really overdo it, but again, we'll see.
Just you wait. We're going to have flashbacks to every Cenobite who they were.
Unfortunately, I don't need Butterball's origin story. Like I'm good.
I mean, I could definitely see one of the new characters becoming a Cenobite by the end of the
Sure.
season. Like that's totally something they're going to do.
Yeah.
But hey, so yeah, there you go. That is the horror news. For obviously there's actually a few things from last weekend there as well. Obviously things have slowed down a little bit because of what's going on in the world right now. But yeah.
One thing probably important to mention too. I don't know if you saw it, as I think it just happened like a day or two ago. But the I believe the co-writer of the first Child's Play movie just passed away.
Oh, I did not see this. No.
Yeah. My apologies. Yeah, I forget his name. I want to say like Lee something maybe, but yeah. Unfortunately, he passed away, and I think it seemed like he was somewhat young. Like, it didn't seem like he was like a super old dude.
Yeah. There's a lot. There was the cinematographer for E.T. passed away like a week or two ago,
Oh jeez.
and that was actually because of the virus. That was
Oh jeez.
that specifically. Which obviously not everyone passing away right now is because of that, but it's definitely it seems to be a reasonable amount of people you hear about passing away are because of that. So so the first question now is, oh, was it this or was it something else? That would have happened anyway. But anyway, so that's the news. We could briefly just bring up any movies, horror movies that we've watched in the last week or so that if we want to mention them. I have one to talk about. I don't know if you got any you want to throw out there.
I actually haven't been watching a ton of horror stuff this last week. I guess it's tangentially related, but you probably consider this more sci-fi, but I actually watched every Fly movie because I got the Scream Factory box set for it, which I'd only ever seen the one Jeff Goldblum movie. I'd actually never seen any of the other ones. But I don't know. I enjoyed them for the most part. I think the first one I like the premise of it. Like I do like that so much of it is just like kind of this woman that seems crazy that's like murdered. Like everyone's just trying to figure out why she murdered her husband and why she keeps looking for this fly. But I did find it to be a little bit boring, but then those last like 15-20 minutes I think are phenomenal. Like especially that kind of like the big punchline or whatever to the very end. I thought was really cool. And then the second one, it's just it seems very unnecessary. There was a couple of cool stuff in it, but it wasn't anything great. The third one I really, really just didn't feel at all. I wasn't a huge fan. And then the 80s Jeff Goldblum one, it'd been a while since I'd seen it. But man, I forgot how good it is. Like I really, really love that movie. Like it's like it's science fiction, but it's also like maybe like one of the best body horror movies ever made. And man, just like everyone is like so good in it. The special effects look great. That is just a really phenomenal movie. And then I'd never seen the sequel before, but I think the sequel is kind of bad. It does have like some cool special effects and stuff in it. But I feel like it kind of takes a while to get anywhere interesting. But
yeah. I've seen the original film with Vincent Price, and I've seen the Jeff Goldblum one, and I saw the sequel to that one. I haven't seen the second or third of the 50s series, but someday we'll do them an ace at some point. So
yeah, like I don't think you really have to see them. Like only if you're if you're someone like us who's probably like a little bit of a completionist when it comes to if you want to call this a franchise or whatever. But I don't think they're like anything you really need to seek out. But I was glad that I watched them.
Yeah. So there you go. I watched a movie called Killer Kate last weekend, and the first half of it is really boring. Very quickly you realize, oh wait, this is one of these movies where it's just people talking for endless amounts of time with really mediocre dialogue, acting that is typically just mediocre. There's one or two bad actors, but for the most part, it's just kind of dull acting. It's not that it's like the worst thing ever. But then one of the big things though is that once you hit about the halfway point in the movie, and the actual stuff happens, because it's this group of like women who are going for like a hen night, or sorry, a bachelorette party, to use the American term. They're going for a bachelorette.
Was it hen night? Is the term?
Hen night's the UK term for it, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Cool.
But they get like an Airbnb style thing, right? Like a house
Okay.
in LA. It's not actually. I mean, it's like LA B&B they call it in the movie, because they're not going to use the actual name. But and it's this family of killers. And when I say family of killers, you're gonna be thinking, oh, you mean like Texas Chainsaw, or like, you know, some sort of weird family like that. No. They're pretty dull people who are and this is the bizarre thing, is whenever it cuts to them planning their attack, because it does do that. Like, it's not like you don't see them until they show up. Like, we have scenes of them kind of talking about the fact that they're going to try and murder this group of people that are going to have trapped in a house.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's more of a black comedy when it's with them, but when it's with Kate and the others, it's like dead serious and whatever. But once the action starts get going, it becomes laughably bad, because the characters start doing things that make no sense. They really want Kate to be like the character from Your Next, because they want her to like become a badass, but it's all just kind of laughable and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The big standout moment for me was that after they witness the first person being killed, their pizza that they ordered arrives, and they pull the pizza guy in, and just casually, whilst they're like panicking and talking about what to do next, both like Kate and her sister just start casually eating the pizza as if it's nothing. Like, what? You're just going to casually eat the pizza that just arrived? Like, that doesn't make sense. You just saw someone get murdered. And it's not,
hey, I might do that.
But and if it was meant to be like a funny beat because it's like a comedy, then fair enough. But all the stuff with these characters is played pretty much dead straight until maybe the very, very end. So
yeah.
That was really odd. And the motivations for the killer is absolutely insane. Like, it's the most mundane yet ridiculous thing for like for the motivation of a guy who got his entire family to try and murder a group of people. It's a very absurd motivation. I'll just say that. But yeah, Killer Kate, not good. Might be worth watching with people as a bad movie, but be warned, it doesn't get fun bad in a way until the second half. The first half is pretty tedious, but it does have good music though. There's a good synth soundtrack to it. So I mean, there's one positive that I can give it, but that's basically it. With that cat over there. So there you go. That has been this week's horror movie news. So let us know what you thought of this stuff in the comments. You can like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at Streams Midnight if you want to at us, or see Tim's ramblings on Twitter or whatever. You can go do that. You can support everything we do. Go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you can do that for as little as $1 per month. And you'll get bonus episodes of Screams After Midnight, bonus movie review episodes. We'll do B-movies usually and weird things and whatever. But you get those at $1 and up. At the $5 tier and up, you get access to voting once per month, and you get access to all the movie review episodes a day early. So go and have a look and see if you want to support everything we do and keep all the content coming. But you can go do that over there.
And real quick, speaking of support, just a little commercial here, but I have a small comic in anthology that has an Indiegogo campaign right now called Housebound, which is a bunch of comic book creators, like indie creators, got together, and we all wrote comics about how we're dealing with the quarantine. So if you want to check that out, it's called Housebound on the Indiegogo. You can get it right now.
Yeah. Doesn't the proceeds go to charity?
Yeah.
Right?
So all the proceeds go to charity. I forget which ones off the top of my head, but it's all stuff to benefit like comic creators and other stuff for COVID-19 relief. So it's all going for a good cause. So if you want to feel good about yourself and read some cool comics, check that out.
Yeah. So yeah, that's us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.